The shouting roommate. The mining station floated silently above the dry red moon. Inside, long metal halls buzzed with machines and quiet footsteps. It was just another normal morning for Tom, the only human living on Station LR5. He had been working there for almost 6 months now. Life was simple. He did his job, stayed out of trouble, and shared a living unit with an alien named Rila. Rila belonged to a species called the Valari. Her skin was pale blue with soft patterns glowing faintly across her arms and neck. Her large, black eyes blinked slowly, and her voice always stayed calm, almost musical. But that peace would not last today. Tom had just finished his morning run around the inner dome. He entered their shared room, sweating and tired. As always, he pulled off his shirt and tossed it on the bed. He then began to change out of his running shorts. That's when Rila walked in. She froze near the door, her dark eyes widened in shock, her mouth opened, but no sound came out for a second then. Suddenly she let out a scream that shook the walls, her voice echoed through the room and spilled into the hallway. Guards a level below turned their heads. Maintenance workers dropped their tools. Somebody hit the red alarm button. Tom turned around in surprise, still holding his pants in one hand. Before he could say a word, Rila pointed at him with a trembling finger and shouted louder than before, "Why is there a tiny sandworm in your pants, human?" Tom blinked and stared. He followed her gaze and then realized what she meant. His face turned red as he quickly grabbed a towel from the side table and covered himself. "Whoa, hold on. It is not a sandworm. It is just a part of human anatomy." Rila backed away, crashing into the doorway, and then running into the hall, still shouting, "Biohazard in Unit 12. Unknown species is armed with internal parasite. Request medical and security support." Tom sighed and dropped his head into his hands. Within 2 minutes, 2 security officers and a medical drone arrived at the unit. They burst into the room and surrounded Tom, who now sat on the bed wearing full clothes and looking annoyed. One officer named Bren stepped forward with the scanner. "State your species and open your mouth." Tom replied, "I am human, and I am not infected with anything." Officer ignored his words and waved the scanner up and down. The small machine beeped as it tried to analyze him. Meanwhile, the drone spun in slow circles and projected warning signs on the wall. "Possible unknown life form detected." Rila peeked from behind the wall, her face full of fear and curiosity. She whispered softly, "I saw it moving. It curled and uncurled, just like the sandworms of Caproni. Swear it had teeth." Tom looked at her helplessly and shook his head. "Does not have teeth. It is just skin and muscle. It is not a worm. It is not alive on its own. You just caught me changing clothes." Rila gasped again. "It is a living part of you. That is even worse. How do you live like that?" Tom sighed again and looked at the officers. "Can someone explain biology to her, please? I do not want to spend the next 5 hours in a quarantine bubble." The officers exchanged looks. One of them said, "We have no training for this kind of misunderstanding. You will need to go to medical for further examination." Tom stood up, annoyed but calm. "Fine, let us get this over with." He turned to Rila as he walked out. "We'll talk later when you are not screaming." Rila looked away, her cheeks glowing faint blue. She had never been so embarrassed or confused in her life. In her world, reproduction happened through spores and chemical signals. There were no visible differences between Valari males and females. Idea that another species carried their reproductive parts outside the body was deeply disturbing to her. Rest of the day passed in a blur for Tommy. Spent 2 hours under medical scans and questions. The machine could not find anything dangerous. Eventually, the station doctor cleared him with a tired voice. "You are perfectly normal for a human. Maybe too normal, please. Be more careful around other species. Not all of them are used to your design." Meanwhile, Rila sat alone in the common room, holding a cup of warm plant broth. Other aliens passed by, giving her strange looks. She ignored them and stared at the floor. Her mind replayed the moment again and again. The way it moved, the way Tom looked shocked, the way the officers stared as if she had lost her mind. She felt confused and guilty. Tom had always been kind and respectful. He had never made her uncomfortable before. And now because of one moment she had turned his morning into a public disaster back in. The living unit. Tom returned and found the room silent. His bag was still by the bed. His datapad was blinking with messages from coworkers. Making jokes, he sat down slowly and looked around. No sign of Relathan. He noticed a small note on the table written in shaky handwriting, "I am sorry. I did not understand. I overreacted. Please do not hate me." Tom smiled a little and placed the note in his pocket, leaned back against the wall, and stared at the ceiling. Life in space was weird, but at least it was never boring. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of the strange journey ahead, not because of anatomy, but because of what had happened before the screen. Something had moved near the wall just before Rila walked in, something that did not belong there, and Tom had seen it too, but no one else seemed to notice yet. Not even Rilanak yet, but he would keep it in mind, because that little sandworm joke might not be a joke at all after all. Rubble with biology. Tom walked through the wide hallway of the station with heavy steps. Around him other workers moved in silence, pretending not to stare, but he could feel their eyes. Some covered their mouths to hide laughs. Some looked away the moment he met their gaze. The story had spread across the station faster than a fire in a dry field. He heard whispers as he passed. "That is the human from Unit 12. The one with the sandwormy." Heard it tried to bite someone. Tom rubbed his forehead and shook his head. He had faced alien beasts that spat acid. He had helped repair a leaking gas pipe in zero gravity. He had even survived a storm on Titan 9, but none of that compared to the embarrassment of today. He entered the small mess hall and grabbed a meal cube from the dispenser. As he sat alone in the corner, his thoughts wandered back to Rila. He remembered how scared she looked. Her eyes wide, her hands shaking. But something still bothered him. She did not scream right away. There was a second before the scream when she was staring at the wall behind him. That moment stayed in his mind, like a tiny alarm ringing softly in the background. At the same time, Rila sat in the station's health bay. A calm female voice repeated instructions through the walls. "Please breathe slowly. Please describe your fear, please. Relax your hands." Rila stared at her hands and realized they were still shaking. The memory kept flashing in her mind. Not just the part about Tom, something else. A flash of movement. A small shape on the floor that vanished too quickly. Her species had excellent memory and perfect eyesight. She was not wrong. She knew what she saw. It looked like a larva, looked like a real sandworm. Baby, it had tiny ridges and dark skin. It moved like it was alive. She looked up at the ceiling and tried to calm her thoughts. The counselor entered the room and sat beside her. His voice was calm and kind. "You seem disturbed." "Relay it, the human incident." Rila looked at him and nodded slowly, partly yes. "But I think I saw something else, something small and fast." The counselor raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying there was another creature in the room?" Rila nodded again. "I only saw it for a second. It disappeared before I screamed, but I know what I saw." The counselor tapped on his device and checked the reports. There was no mention of any other movement, no biological trace, no camera record. Rila frowned. "I know what I saw. And if I am right, we have a much bigger problem then." Tom, meanwhile, back in their living unit. Tom began to clean up the mess left after the security check. Items were scattered across the room, pillows thrown aside, drawers left open. He picked up a small tool from the floor and stared at it. It was one of Rila's scanners. She used it to measure soil samples. It should have been in her lab case, not near his bed. He turned it over and noticed a fine layer of black dust on the handle. That was strange. He touched the dust and rubbed it between his fingers. Felt oily and rough, not like anything from their storage room. He took a small bag and sealed the sample. Inside, he knew someone who could help. Tom left the unit and headed toward the maintenance bay where an old friend named Dale worked. Dale was human like him and had a sharp mind for strange things. Tom reached the bay and found Dale working under a power line. "Hey, I need your help." Dale slid out from under the panel and looked up. "Did The sandworm attack again. Tom rolled his eyes funny. Actually, I found something strange in our room. He handed over the bag with the dust. Dale held it up to the light and frowned. Where did you get this? Near my bed. After the security team left, Dale took out a small scanner and placed the bag inside. The screen flashed and beeped twice. This is not from the station. This dust is organic. Looks like something from the surface of Kepron 4. Tom looked confused. There are no samples from Kepron 4 in our unit. We never visited that moon. Dale stood slowly and scratched his head. Well, then either someone brought it in or something came on its own. Back in the health bay, Rila stood up and walked to the window. Her mind was racing with questions. What if she had been right? What if the panic about Tom made her miss the real danger? She felt ashamed but also scared. She left the health bay and walked back toward her unit. Along the way, she passed Tom in the hallway. They stopped and looked at each other. He spoke first. Are you okay? She nodded slowly. I'm sorry. I should have listened. I overreacted. Tom gave a small smile. It is okay, but I need to show you something. They entered the unit, and Tom showed her the dust and explained everything. Rila examined the dust and her eyes widened. She touched the edge of the bag and looked at him. This is sandworm skin, fresh. It means something hatched near here. It is growing. Tom felt a chill down his back. You mean a real one, not just a misunderstanding? Not a real one, and it might still be inside the station. Tom looked at her with a serious face. Then we need to find it, and fast before it finds us first. The bigger threat. The station lights flickered once, then returned to normal. A slight vibration ran through the metal floor, but no one paid attention. Machines often made strange noises on Alara 5. Most workers had stopped noticing the small signs long ago. But today Tom and Rila were not ignoring anything. They had returned to their unit and were checking every corner. Rila moved silently, her scanner humming in her hand. Tom followed behind, holding a small light. Both were focused, alert, and quiet. They were no longer just roommates. They were now teammates looking for something hiding where it should not be. Rila knelt near the wall beside the air duct. Her scanner beeped softly. She paused, then waved it again. The beep grew louder. She looked back at Tom. There is movement inside the vent. Tom bent down and pressed his ear to the metal. I can hear something to it. Is slow, but it is there. He grabbed a small tool and unscrewed the cover. The moment the panel came loose, a wave of warm air hit them. It carried a strange smell like damp soil and burnt oil. Rila's eyes narrowed. That smell is from Kepron 4. Remember it from the last expedition. They both leaned closer and peered inside. The vent was dark and narrow. Something small had moved through it. The dust inside was disturbed, and a slim trail ran across the center like something had slithered through. Tom stood up and wiped his hands on his shirt. If it is in the vents, it could be anywhere. By Norila nodded. We need to alert the station. This is a real threat, not just a misunderstanding. They rushed toward the command deck, but were stopped at the security gate. Officer Bren stood there, arms crossed, his face unreadable. You again. What is it this time? Another biology lesson? Tom shook his head. This is not about me. There is something in the vents. Something. Aliva. Rila stepped forward. We believe it is a sandworm larva, and it is growing. Bren raised an eyebrow. That is impossible. No known species of sandworm can survive in this station. Rila held out her scanner. This is not a guess. We have samples. We have signs. We need to check the filtration systems and the power core tunnels. Hesitated, then tapped his device. Fine. You have 20 minutes to prove something. If not, I will report both of you for causing panic. They followed him down into the lower levels of the station. Pipes lined the walls, and steam hissed from broken seals. Lights flickered above them, casting long shadows. Rila stopped near the water filtration system and scanned the panel. There is high heat behind this door, and something is moving. It is breathing. Tom reached for the manual release lever and pulled. The door hissed and slid open. Inside, the room was dark. The floor was wet and the air was thick. In the corner, a shape moved. It was long and dark with ridged skin. It pulsed slowly, as if drawing air into itself. Its body twitched with every drop of water that dripped from the pipe above. Tom stepped forward slowly. That is not a part of the station, that is a living thing. Creature raised its head and hissed a low sound that vibrated the walls. Bren stepped back, pulling his weapon. What in the void is that thing? Qix'ala's eyes widened. It is a sandworm, but this one is different. It is adapting to metal. It is feeding on energy. It should not be possible. The worm lunged toward the nearest pipe and bit through the metal like soft fruit. Sparks flew into the air, and the lights above them flickered again. Tom grabbed Qix'ala's arm. We need to leave now. They ran out of the room and sealed the door behind them. The worm slammed against the door from the inside. The wall shook with each hit. Bren looked at both of them, his face pale. You were right. That thing is not just a worm, it is a threat to the whole station. Tom caught his breath. It was hiding inside our vents, feeding slowly, waiting to grow. Now it is big enough to break metal. If it reaches the power core, it could destroy everything. Qix'ala nodded. We need a plan, a trap, something to stop it before it grows again. Bren turned and tapped his cum. This is Security Officer Bren. We have a living threat in the lower level. Seal all vents, block all tunnels to the core. Prepare emergency team. Tom looked at the map on the wall nearby. There is one place we can lure it, the old airlock chamber. It is dry and empty. If we can get it there, we can flush it into space. Qix'ala stared at the map and nodded slowly. But how do we get it to follow us? Tom smiled faintly. It feeds on water and heat. If we can simulate both, it will chase us. Bren looked between them. You two are going to lead it. There are you out of your minds? Tom shrugged. We started this mess, we might as well finish it. Qix'ala placed her hand on his shoulder. You will not do it alone. We started together, we end it together. The station's alarm sounded as emergency lights turned red. The hunt had begun, and the sandworm was already moving again. Race against the worm. The USM red lights blinked across the station halls as the warning siren echoed again and again. The voice from the main system kept repeating one message: threat detected in Sector 7. Evacuate all nearby units. Security teams moved to alert level 3. Tom and Qix'ala ran down the narrow tunnel that led to the old airlock chamber. Behind them, the sound of metal scraping metal grew louder. The worm was following. Its long body twisted through the pipes above and below. The station groaned as if it was alive and hurting. Tom carried a small device that gave off steam and waves of heat. It was built from parts Dal had given him. Qix'ala held a water tube that sprayed mist into the air behind them. They were bait, and the worm was chasing. Qix'ala looked over her shoulder. It is getting closer. Tom nodded and kept running. That means the trap is working. Do not stop. They turned a sharp corner and entered the last hallway before the chamber. The lights above them had failed. Only the glow from Qix'ala's scanner lit the way. The walls were shaking with every movement of the creature behind them. It was bigger now, faster, more aware. Tom remembered stories he had heard about sandworms on distant moons. Creatures that grew without limit. Creatures that could swallow mining stations whole. But this one was different. It was not natural. It had adapted to metal, heat, and space technology. Something had changed it. They reached the chamber door. Tom slammed the control panel. The door opened slowly with a hiss. Inside the chamber was cold, dry, and empty. No systems work here. No machines had been used in months. It was the perfect trap. They rushed inside and spread the heat and mist across the room. Then they waited. Silence, then a low growl, then a crash. The vent above the chamber exploded open, and the worm dropped down. Its body hit the floor like a falling pipe. It was longer than before, darker than before, sharper than before. Its mouth opened, showing rows of metallic teeth. Wires hung from its back like wet hair. Its eyes glowed red. Tom stepped back slowly, holding the heat device in front of him. The worm followed his movement, crawling forward inch by inch. Qix'ala moved to the side near the airlock control. Her hands shook as she typed the code. The worm growled again and lunged Tom through the heat device across the room. It landed with a loud crash and broke open. Steam filled the air. The worm turned away from Tom and slithered toward the noise. Rila pressed the final button. The outer door began to open. A strong wind pulled at everything inside the chamber. Worm stopped and turned its head. It saw the open space beyond the door. It saw the stars and the pull of gravity. It tried to move back. Tom grabbed a metal rod from the wall and hit the floor near the worm. Over here, ugly thing. The worm charged at him. But the floor shook and it began to slide. Its body hit the edge of the chamber. Its head lifted high and its mouth opened wide. It screamed a sound that rattled Tom's bones, but it was too late. The pull of space was stronger. Its body twisted and turned. As it was dragged out, its tail slapped the walls and sparks flew everywhere. And then it was gone. Airlock door sealed shut again. The chamber went silent. Tom fell to the floor, breathing hard. Rila rushed to his side and pulled him up. Are you hurt? He shook his head. Just tired, very tired. They left the chamber and walked back into the station halls. The sirens had stopped. The lights returned to normal. Officers passed them with wide eyes. No one spoke. They all knew what had happened. Tom and Rila returned to their unit. The room was quiet again. The mess had not been cleaned yet. The scanner still lay on the table. The dust samples were still inside the bag. Tom sat down on the bed and closed his eyes. Rila stood beside him and spoke softly. Thank you. He opened one eye. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I screamed at you, even when I made a mistake. Tom smiled. We all make mistakes. Some are just louder than others. She sat down beside him. What now? He looked at the wall for a long moment. Now, we tell the station what really happened and we prepare, because if this thing came in once, it can come again. Rila nodded. And next time, it might not be a lone piece, pants and promotion. The next morning the station felt different. The usual noise of machines was softer. The air felt cleaner. The halls were quieter. Everyone moved with slower steps. The news had spread across every unit. A real sandworm had been inside the station. A human and an alien had worked together to stop it. For once the rumors were true. Tom woke up to a message on his pad. It was from the station commander. The words were short but clear. Report to control deck at 900 hours. Wear clean uniform. Bring your partner. He showed the message to Rila, who had just finished her tea. You think we are in trouble? Rila shook her head. I think they want answers and maybe something else. They cleaned up their unit for the first time in days. Tom found the old security tag still stuck under the table. Rila picked up the scanner and checked it again. No signs of movement, no heat signals, no danger. For now the worm was truly gone. They walked together through the station. People stepped aside for them. Some nodded, some smiled, some looked away with quiet respect. They entered the control deck where the commander stood near a large screen. Officer Bren was there too, with a small box in his hand. You two caused a bit of chaos, the commander's voice was calm but sharp. But you also saved this station from destruction. Your fast thinking and teamwork stopped something that none of us saw coming. Rila nodded. It was not easy, Tom added, and not very clean. Bren opened the box and handed them each a small badge. You are both promoted. Tom to station safety officer, Rila to lead xenobiologist. Wear these with pride. Tom stared at the badge. I thought I was going to be sent home. The commander smiled. That was the plan until you flushed a space worm into the stars. Now we need people like you more than ever. They left the control deck and headed toward the cafeteria. For the first time in weeks, Tom felt light. Not just from relief, but from something else. Purpose. He had been the only human on this station. Now he was more than that. He was part of something real. Rila sat across from him with her new badge pinned to her chest. Do you think the worm was sent here on purpose? Tom nodded slowly. It felt too perfect. It did not come through normal ways. It grew fast. It adapted fast. Someone made it that way. Arilla looked at her potty. We'll start a full report scan every record, track every visitor in the last month. If someone brought it in, we will find out. Tom took a bite from his meal cube. Maybe next time they send 2 worms or something. Worse. Rila lifted her cup. Then we will stop them again. Just try not to change clothes. In front of me, he laughed. No promises. Later that week, a new poster appeared on the wall near the central corridor. It showed a human outline with labels pointing to different parts. At the bottom were words in large red letters: know your roommate, avoid misunderstandings, protect peace in shared units. Beside the poster stood Rila with a datapad. She was teaching a small group of alien workers about human biology. Tom watched from a distance, hiding a smile. He never thought this would become normal. A young alien walked up to him. Is it true you fought the worm with only steam and a metal rod? Tom shrugged. I did what I had to do. The alien looked amazed. You humans are strange but strong. Later that night, Tom returned to his room and sat near the window. The stars outside blinked like tiny eyes watching from far away. Rila joined him and placed a small box on the table. Open-eyed raised an eyebrow, but opened the box slowly. Inside was a tiny model of a sandworm made of metal and plastic. It wore a funny hat and had a smile painted on its face. A tag under it read Station Pet of the Month. Tom laughed for a full minute. You made this. Rila smiled. To remind you of your victory and also your accident. Tom placed the model on the shelf. It is perfect. Station would never be the same again, not because of danger, not because of fear, but because two roommates from different worlds learned to trust each other, and because one of them happened to look like he was hiding a sandworm in his pants. The stars outside kept shining, and the station kept spinning, but now it felt a little safer, a little warmer, and a lot more ready for whatever came next, because humans were not just visitors anymore. They were part of the story, part of the fight, and part of the future, and that was more than enough. The end.